will pertain only to public procurement. I mean, procurement in public domain. So the ground rules will remain the same. You kindly listen and see the PowerPoint presentation, and the question answer will be followed later. And for that, kindly mute. Maybe if possible, you kindly, go off picture-wise also, because then the communication will be smooth. Yeah. So we'll start on procurement procedure in government departments. To repeat, whatever we are discussing is in the realm of public procurement. So now every time we'll not say about public procurement, but it means whatever we are discussing is about that. This topic, this session rather, is all about procedure. In the first half, we discussed what is procurement, what is public procurement, and what are the different measures that the government has taken for public procurement, the public sector undertakings have taken, and how public procurement is normally the concept and how it is done. But now specifically we will go for procedure, and therefore some of the concepts that we discussed in the first session, first half, will reappear here, and then explanation will be given. I presume that almost all of you must have some experience of the audit, must have audited, and therefore different terminology that will be used here should be known to you, but otherwise we'll be discussing those, we'll be explaining those. So let's start with procurement procedure in government departments. Now, government department means not only directly the government. As we discussed again in the first half, the public procurement is applicable in all those places where public has got a stake, where the department has partial or full stake of the government, central as well as states. So procurement procedure in those departments, like I had worked in public sector, I had worked in state authority, so it's all the same. We will again refresh ourselves with what is the definition of procurement or public procurement, then how procurement organization is made or developed in an organization, and then we'll come directly to procurement procedure stepwise. And finally, of course, since it is the class of the auditors, we'll provide you a procurement audit checklist, what you people should see when you go for auditing a procurement department, purchase department. So just to refresh ourselves, let's again go for this, like what is procurement? So we have seen it in the first half, but anyway, just refresh yourself. Procurement is the acquisition of goods, services or works from an external source. It is favorable that the goods, services or works are appropriate and that they are procured at the best possible cost to meet the needs of the purchaser in terms of quality and quantity, time and location. We have already discussed that. The word again is here, acquisition, means a purchaser acquires goods or service or works from an external source, means this is not from within his own source. He is buying that, getting it from outside. So this we have seen, and it's nothing new about it. Similarly, public procurement also we have dealt in details in the first half. Just to refresh again, public procurement can be defined as the procurement of goods, works and services by all government ministries, departments, agencies, statutory corporations and public sector undertakings in the center and the states. And apart from that, municipal corporations and other local bodies, and even by private public sector undertakings, which are providing public services on monopoly basis, award of public-private partnerships. In fact, government departments do only public procurement. That is the punchline. Government departments cannot do non-public procurement. I mean, they have to follow the tenets of public procurement. And then again, since it's public procurement, so all procurement activities must ensure transparency, fairness, efficiency, economy, adherence to laid down procedure. it is said that the system should not only be working transparent and fair, but it should be seen to be like that. You are fair, no doubt, but you have to be seen as a fair person, as a transparent person, as an efficient person, or in terms of department or entity, as a transparent entity, transparent department, fair department, something like that. What kind of procurements we are talking about? See, again, we have seen work, service, and materials. So classification of procurement goes like this, that we normally, or rather mostly, buy materials, buy services, and buy or get work. So procurement is classified as procurement of materials, procurement of services, procurement of getting work. Let me give one example, very small, you people all know about it, nothing new. Materials means you are getting an object as something. See, in the first half, we gave an example of buying only pen. So anything, pen, man, machine, raw material, spares, whatever you buy comes under materials. Services is that you are having certain facility, but that facility requires some services also, which you want to take from an outsider. For example, you have got a very beautiful building, but you are not able to clean that building. So for cleaning, for maintaining, so many things, you can have a service contract for cleaning of the building. You can have a service contract for electricity, entire electric things in that building. You can have a separate agency for providing you the service to provide your water connections there in the entire building. This is called service. And this is procurement of service if you are getting it from an outsider. Procurement of getting work means you are basically work and service are interchangeably used unless and until work means little bit of construction. You are getting something created in your premises or wherever you want to do that. You may be having a big building, but you want to have an extra room, an extra visitors room over there, which was not there. So you may have to create a room, build a new room. So that is called work. And anyway, these are not very big things. You must be knowing about it. So these are classification of procurement. Now, let's come to procurement organization. And this should be of very much interest to you, because we have seen in the public procurement discussion that government has laid down certain procedures, administrative procedures, GFR, through which procurement is done in the public domain. Naturally, in a place where procurement is a regular activity, something which is done day in and day out, as I gave you the example of my own company, Steel Authority, which works for 3 shifts in 365 days, and which consumes a lot of raw materials and spares and consumables. Procurement department or purchase department also has to work from 9 to 5:30 every day. So this is a well-established department. Normally, any organization will have to have a procurement department, often called a purchase department, or nowadays it is called materials management department, MMD, materials management department. Materials management because it has got 2-3 wings. One is purchase, another is stores, another is inspection, and in some other organizations, even marketing is done under the same head, same roof. So it is MMD, materials management department. Now every government or semi-government or PSU where purchasing is a regular activity normally has a full-fledged purchasing department with trained personnel and hierarchy. You know, we have got a lot many trainings only for purchase department. In India, or if you see in the entire world, if one particular function has got positively charged or affected during the last 20 years, massively, no other function has been affected so much in the world. It is purchasing. Have you heard of supply chain management? Everywhere people talk about supply chain management. See, I was seeing a figure somewhere that nearly 40% of employment in the whole world has been created only by supply chain function. 40% of the people are engaged only in this function in the entire world. Purchasing happens to be one of the key functions of that particular domain called supply chain or called materials management. Materials management itself is a part of overall supply chain management. So this particular function has seen tremendous changes over the last 10 or 15 years, mainly because a lot of competition has been generated through internet. Now, because of the internet, you will find that purchasing is online. You also might be purchasing so many things from Amazon, from Flipkart, from Snapdeal, and so many companies are coming up every day. And so many things you are doing online. So naturally, purchase people need to be trained suitably.
That person only.
Hello? Have you muted, please? This is a request from my side to everybody. Please mute yourself. Please. System se mute होता है. Therefore, it is necessary today that any professional organization, professionally managed organization, needs to have a very well trained personnel and hierarchy in the sense a department constituting of some junior, some senior, where in a public sector undertaking or government, there is a different delegation of powers which one has to use. So naturally the hierarchy is there. But trained personnel are prerequisite to run as your purchasing department in a very professional, smooth manner. A well laid down, transparent and fair procedure and system to do purchasing professionally. We have already discussed in the first half that GFR provides procedure. That is the administrative measure that is available with us. Now, I would say that each organization has its own procedure and system. But because of the GFR and other CBCs, some procedures and other things, today, more or less, the procedure are very, very much similar from organization to organization. Not much of a difference. The basic tenets of fairness, efficiency, transparency, economy, this is common to all the organizations in the public domain. So we will, but we have to have a fair procedure and system for doing purchasing. Professionally means work has to be done professionally. I mean, in a very unbiased manner, very fair manner, very transparent manner. Third, adequate financial and administrative delegation of power for taking appropriate decisions related to procurement. What we are discussing is basically procurement organization, and I am saying that in most of the organizations, whether it's government, it's semi-government, PSU, purchasing is a regular activity, and therefore, in those organizations, procurement organizations, we are calling procurement organization, but as I told you, it is basically called purchase department or stores department or materials management department. Procurement, I will just differentiate with purchasing a little while afterwards. So, in a purchase department, you have to have adequate financial and administrative delegation of power for taking appropriate decisions. One man is not interested with the entire power. According to the hierarchy of seniors, the power is increased or decreased. If you go higher up, the power increases. If you come down, vice versa. So that delegation of power, financial and administrative, are given. And then, very important for you people is that every procurement department has to have a sound record keeping or audit trail system. Audit trail is secondary, but primarily is you have to keep the record. But the records are kept not only for audit, the records are kept for reference also over a time. Maybe we have bought something today, purchased something today, and after 5 years somebody wants to see, "Kya bhai, wo to purchase kiya tha, let us see what was the price at that time, what was the things." In our way of working in a manufacturing organization like Steel Authority, there is a concept of LPP, last purchase price. Means what was the price of that item when purchased last? And you know, many items, rather majority of items buy every year. If not every year, then at least once in 2 years. So naturally, somebody would like to see what was the price during the last purchase, so that he can compare today's price with that price. Therefore, record keeping is a must. And this is not necessarily only for the public domain or public procurement. This is necessary for each and every professionally managed, professionally run purchasing department. So usually in a procurement organization, these things are seen to be existing. There is a purchase department, there are procedures and system, there are enough delegation of power, administrative and financial both, and then finally there's a system of record keeping. You might have heard ISO 9000, today now it's ISO 2000, something like that. What is it? It's all about record keeping. It provides a quality assurance plan, the backbone of which is record keeping. Most of the organizations once upon a time were ISO 9000. They are also ISO 9000 even today. So record keeping is a must. So this is all about procurement organization. Now, one thing, let me differentiate here a bit. We have been talking about procurement. We are not referring to purchasing. Is there any difference between procurement and purchasing, or both are same? See, once we go into the steps, the next slide, then you will know the difference. It's something like purchasing is a part of overall procurement. Purchasing is an activity by which we physically place the order to get a material. This is purchasing. But procurement starts when you plan for the purchasing. Right since the time you feel the need for an item or a service or a work, and then you plan for that. The procurement activity starts from there. Purchasing, actual purchasing comes much later. So the procurement activity starts right since the time you have planned for procurement, you have started the plan for the procurement, and finally it culminates after getting that service, getting that work done, getting that material, and making the payment to the party. The whole thing is called one purchase cycle. So the difference between procurement and purchasing is only that purchasing is a part of procurement. But of course, when we talk normally, we talk as if procurement and purchasing both are same. Let's now come to the actual where how do we procure or how do we purchase? We talked about purchase procurement procedure. We talked about GFR. We said that there is no legislation or executive legislation or constitution provides something, but they don't provide about the procedure. Whereas GFR provides some procedure, but procedure differs from organization to organization, keeping the basic tenets of public procurement same. So before we discuss this particular slide, we'll go into 10 other slides after that to show each one what is procurement planning, freezing, preparing estimates, and so many things. Can we have one or two pictorial kind of thing just to understand a bit, you say clearly? This is a typical procurement flow diagram. It is on your screen. Just see. I will explain these words, raising of indent. But before that, you just see in a typical procurement flow diagram or procurement cycle, you can say, it starts from raising of indent, then it goes to finance for budget. From budget, it goes to a steering committee, which screens the whole indent. Indent means purchase requisition. Purchase requisition means a formal paper that describes what do I want to purchase, what service I need, what work I need, what material I need, and then associated information like what was the last purchase price, what is my estimate, what is the specification of that particular item or service or work. which parties can provide all these things, the list of the parties, so many things are there. So that is called in some organizations indent, in some organizations purchase requisition, and in some organization material indent paper or something, MIP. Anyway, that is not very prevalent, but indent or purchase requisition are most common words. So it goes to finance, and finance gives the budget after screening it. Then it goes to a screening committee which screens everything, specification, requirement, how many parties you have mentioned, then why do you want this item. The screening committee even has the power of saying that you don't raise this indent, no need of this item or service or work. To screening committee, after screening, suppose it has passed, it goes to budget clearance. For budget clearance, finance has not given budget clearance, they have just screened it or noted down that an indent has been raised and this much of money may be required for this. But at this stage, budget clearance, finance has to give money for that. Without that, nothing will happen. Then it goes to MMD, Materials Management Department, which registers this particular kind of a thing. See, all these blocks which you are seeing on your screen, they are certain activities for which the records are kept, and whenever you auditors come to our organization, you seek those records, you ask for those records, you go through those records, and then you offer so many comments even on that. So these activities are of vital importance to you. This procurement flow diagram is very, very important to you, vitally important. You must know how the things move. That is called procedure. So from MMD, what MMD does is that records that they have received the indent. Then they will also scrutiny the indent. They may also be having so many questions to ask from the indenter, the person who wants this work done, service done, or who wants that material for his use. Normally, those persons are groups or divisions, or you can say users, the shop floors in a plant, which want certain items procured to run the system, run their own shop. So after this scrutiny, the inquiry, proposal, and approval means we have talked about delegation of power. So somebody will make a proposal that a tender inquiry has to be issued. And that fellow will then give it to his higher up, depending upon who has got the delegation of power, to approve for issuing the inquiry. It also, delegation of power means it may also not rest in one hand. The maker will send it to his higher up, who may not be having complete delegation of power. He will again check, give it to his higher up, who has got the delegation of power, till the time it goes to a person who is competent enough to approve that. 2-3 persons are there in the hierarchy most of the time. So this goes like this, and then an approval is given to issue the inquiry, and then finally the inquiry is issued. Inquiry means tender inquiry. The tender is floated, which we hear commonly. Floating of tender, issue of inquiry, tendering, all these things are same thing. One day there will be tender opening. The tenders have come after issue of inquiry. A particular time and date and time has been fixed. On this date at 3 p.m. we will open the tender. So this tender opening is done. After this tender opening is done, a techno-commercial evaluation of the tenders is done. Techno-commercial means technical specifications are those which necessarily constitute the material or the service of the work. What work we need is defined in the indent through technical specifications. So this is technical evaluation. Besides this is commercial evaluation. Commercial things mean what payment terms we have offered, what the tenders have offered or they want, what warranty clause we have inserted, what warranty clause they have responded to, what completion time we have said in that, what completion time they have offered. All these things will come under commercial. So this techno-commercial evaluation will be done compared to we had asked in our indent. Indent happens to be the standard for comparing what the parties have offered to us. If the parties are deviating a bit, then we can go and seek the clarification from the parties. Clarification in the sense that we will again like the parties to confirm to the indent specification both commercial as well as technical. Then once all clarifications have been received, and it's not necessary that you always need clarification. Sometimes the tenders are so clear compared to our indent that we very clearly know which parties are meeting our requirement and which parties are not meeting our requirement. Some parties may be straightway rejected because they have not met the requirement, they have given something else. We wanted something and they have probably misunderstood, they gave something else. So at that time, there's no point in seeking any clarification from them, just reject them. But some parties which have given a different set of techno-commercial conditions from their side, after having confirmed that they understood what they are going to, what we want, then some clarifications may be needed from the parties. Now, one step we are missing here, but it should have come here. After that, we open the price bids of the parties. And after opening of the price bids of those parties only, which are techno-commercially suitable, means though parties are techno-commercially suitable only when they have met the standards spelled out in our indent specification. Absolutely no deviations. So for those parties only, we open their price bids and find out which is the L1 party. L1 means lowest offered party. You recall we had said that finally the order is awarded to that party which is advantageous to us. In what respect they are advantageous to us? In the respect of price. They are offering the lowest price. So that L1 party is now the party with which we have to interact. Now here comes a CVC guideline or purchase procedure, which says that after the price bids have been opened, then you have to consider only and only L1 party. The parties which are not L1, suppose L2, L3, L4, L5, in that order, all these parties cases closed. No entertainment, no entertaining, nothing. These parties are gone. You have to decide only on L1 party. So let's say there is a clear-cut L1 party based, and then CVC again says that you avoid negotiation. Price negotiation has been banned. But let me tell you here one thing, that in a commercial organization like say Mines Steel Authority or whatever you can take, see, we are working for profit. If we find that a party is L1, but still the party's L1 rate is higher than what we had thought should be right for the market, given the market, then we call the party and do some price negotiation and try to bring down the price. Although apparently and normally the price negotiation is banned by the CVC, but we take approval from competent authority within the organization and we go ahead with price negotiation if required. Suppose all these things have been done and we have finally decided to place the order on this party. Then a purchase proposal is made just on the lines of inquiry proposal. Somebody will make the purchase proposal giving the complete details of purchase item, quantity, price, taxes and duties, delivery period, all those terms and conditions. And then it will go to the competent authority again as per the delegation of power for approval. After that approval has been taken, then finally the order is issued. Order is issued to the party. An order contains not many conditions which have been agreed to by the party during our inquiry and maybe techno-commercial evaluation or maybe clarification stage. But those are the only terms and conditions which have been agreed upon mutually by the party and the purchaser. After this clear issue of order, we follow with the supplier for delivery. Then we receive the delivery one day as per the order, delivery date. Now, once we receive the material, then also some internal jobs are to be performed. Like we have to do inspection of the material, whether we have received the same material or not. This has to be decided by us. I mean, this has to be seen by us. So we have got an inspection wing, which takes the order copy, sees the material, compares the inspection, specification, other things, and then suppose he passes it, so it goes to the acceptance area. Yes, it is accepted now. And after acceptance, it goes for storage. Now it is finally to be stored because the material is as per the order, it is our material. And from their stores or custody, we say, it goes for issue of materials to that shop which had raised the indent. So from here, this cycle starts, comes down to this after so many stages, again, the material goes to user department. Now this whole thing completes one cycle of purchase. The whole thing for 1 year or 2 years as per the demand of the indenter. Suppose it is only a 1 year, then next year again the same cycle will be followed. The indenter will raise the indent, then it will go to finance, will go to screening committee, same thing, everything same. So this is a typical procurement flow diagram just to show you how the purchase procedure works in an organization. Another diagram I will try to show. Same diagram, exactly the same. There is absolutely no change in this. But in some other words, these words match more what we discussed in the first half. What are the requirements from indenter? That they have to timely determine the requirements. This is of vital importance. What they need, say, in the month of December this year, and suppose it takes 5 months to place the order or get the material, then there is no point in raising the indent in September end, because you have got now only October, November, December. The material in any case will come sometimes in February or March. So they have committed a mistake. They should have gone for raising the indent sometimes in June or July, which they have not done. So therefore, from their side, timely determination of requirements of goods or works or service, goods means materials, goods, works or service, is very, very, very essential. Any delay here delays the entire train. A delayed train never reaches its destination on time. So from the first station itself, the fellow has to be very, very cautious about his requirements, the timeliness of his requirements. Now, after suppose all these things have been done, then as we saw in the last flow diagram, he wants fund for that. Funds and land and statutory clearance wherever required. Suppose he is going to get a building constructed, then he will have to have a land, some statutory clearance. If he has to go only for goods or materials, then these things are not required, but he will be needing funds. After that, he will finalize technical specification, commercial conditions. When he is raising the indent here, he is also finalizing the technical terms, specification of that item or service or work, and commercial kind of things. For helping him, for making his commercial specifications, purchase department does give a lot of help to them. Because these commercial things are usually dealt by the purchase department. Now, after this finalization of technical specification and commercial conditions, he will raise the indent, and then it comes to purchase, and purchase then decides the mode of bidding. Here, we have not said about the mode of bidding, but he simply said that he will issue the inquiry. So, mode of bidding has to be decided by purchase. And mode of biddings are open tendering, limited tendering, nomination. Nomination means single tender. There are emergencies also. So even the mode of bidding may be emergency, because for emergency the procedure changes. The normal procedure is not used. For emergency meetings, for meeting the emergency, even the emergency procedures are there in place. Then mode of bidding, then it's come types of bidding. Somebody was asking in the first half this question, what is the disadvantage with the two envelope system? So this type of bidding you will decide whether we will go for single stage, single envelope, whether we will go for single stage, two envelope, or whether we will go for two stage. We will discuss all these things. But here I'm showing you only the cycle, how purchase cycle goes on and on and on year after year. Then from type of bidding, we come to tendering, and then we get the bids from the party. Bids means tender. Bids and tenders are same. Offer, bid, tender. All these three words are same. We call it offer of the party. We call it tender from the party. We call bid from the party. These are same. So bids are submitted by the party. And of course, going by the technology today, we have got e-bids or we have got paper bids. Paper bids are old kind of things where the tender is deposited through papers in a sealed envelope. Nowadays, e-bids have come where these things are given digitally. They remain logged in digital and handed over, given through online bidding. Not bidding exactly, I would say. Their one bid, first bid is coming through online through us. It happens. So it is called e-bid. Now, bid evaluation, as we just discussed, technical comparison, commercial comparison, general compliance, so many things which we had mentioned in our tender inquiry or tender. So after bid evaluation, again, the same which we discussed, award to lowest, L1, or if there is a contract, we call it contract signing, or we call it, say, awarding contract to the party, or we give placement of order, purchase order placement. All these things are there. Then if there is a contract for work, then we monitor that contract, and contract management we will be discussing tomorrow. So this contract word will come again and again tomorrow, but we monitor it, we execute it, we manage it. In fact, we follow it up. Whether it's supply or contract, we have to follow it up with the supplier to give the material on time, or with the contractor to complete the work on time. And after that, suppose the material has come, so here we accept the material or work or service after inspection. We did inspection here after receipt of material, and then we accepted it. Similarly, acceptance of goods and works after the inspection. And then these are commercial issues where the parties invoice to be verified by our finance department, whether it's correct or not, matches with the purchase order or not. And then finally, the payment is made to the party. And then again, this cycle is complete. And if the indenter or the user department again needs that material, then he has to determine the requirement every year. Only thing is that sometimes it may be required little late, sometimes it may be required little early, depending upon the consumption of that item. But he has to be very, very alert on timely determination of requirements. So this constitutes completion of a complete procurement cycle. This is called procurement cycle. This goes on year after year in every organization which works for 365 days in a regular manner. Okay. So this is procurement cycle. Now, this you have understood. Given these two diagrams, these flow diagrams, you have clearly understood how things move. This is in fact procedure. Now we'll go for a little bit of explanation on this. So we had seen these were the procurement procedure stepwise. This is the procurement procedure stepwise. Step in the sense, step we have seen. This is a step, this is a step. Now here let's read. Procurement planning, we had seen. Determination of requirement. Freezing exact requirements, we have seen. This is at the time of invoicing. Preparing estimates. Estimates means when we have frozen our requirement, then we want to know how much money will it cost to us to get that service or work or material. So we prepare the estimates. Prepare the estimate. This is a very, very, very important function of entire purchase. Indian tracing. Estimate, and for that there are so many methods, so many ways. But one very common way is to compare it with the last purchase price. As I said, it's a cycle. So after completion of one cycle, when we move to the next cycle for procurement of the same item, we compare the last year's prices, last cycle prices. It is called last purchase price, LPP, last purchase price. So that serves as a very good reference for making our fresh estimates. That last purchase price is the reference on the basis of which we see whether there is a market is increasing or market is decreasing. Price wise. There may be some reason market is increasing, some reason market may be decreasing. That way we change our estimate a bit, or rather we adjust our estimate compared to last purchase price. Then finally we raise the purchase requisition, the indent which we have discussed. And finally, and after that, we go for tendering, again, single, limited, open mode, or single bid, 2 bid, or 3 bids. We will little bit explain here. Receipt, opening and evaluation of tenders as per the diagram, then price bid, opening and price comparison. Then again, we come to L1 here. And then finally, we make a purchase, contract or order proposal and order placement or contract awarding. And then, as we saw, we go for receiving of materials, inspection, clearance for use. We receive the material, we do inspection and acceptance, clearance for use, that is acceptance. And finally, if everything is all right, we make the payment to the supplier as per payment terms. So this procedure basically gives you a glimpse of the cycle which we discussed. This cycle, this both are same in a very cyclic manner. Now let's move on to little bit of explanation of each step. We are discussing procurement procedure in government departments. Things must be clear by now a lot, but let's go into details of each and every procedure also at times. We have discussed this procurement planning. How do you do that? So an annual procurement plan needs to be made. This is a fact that you have to have an annual procurement plan needs. This is needed. An organization or a manufacturing industry or even the government where something is bought every year, you know that it will be bought in the future also every year. So why don't you make an annual procurement plan? APP. Let's go in whether it's a financial requirement for that organization for making the budget of the whole organization, that you tell what is your annual procurement plan. Don't come to me every time with an indent. I will give you the fund every indent wise, no doubt, but then tell me how much you will be requiring in the whole of the year, because I will get an annual budget from my corporate office or government once in a year. Whereas you will be raising thousands of indents in that year. And for every indent, I have to give you some budget during the entire year. So I will not be seeking that budget from the government 1,000 times in a year. Government will give me a budget once in a year. So you make an annual procurement plan, tell me how much budget will be required for your entire procurement, and then I will seek the budget from the government once. That is why an annual procurement plan needs to be made. I am not talking about one indent. I am talking about a purchase department which is going to procure thousands of items in a year. How the procurement is done in government, what is the procedure? So this is one part of the procedure, and very, very important procedure. It starts, from here the procedure starts. That you have to make an annual procurement plan. Then, as per the classification of procurement, you have to do some separate planning for procurement of materials, services, and works. This is also required because there may be some, you can say, policy of your concern, your organization or government, that whatever materials you need once in one lot, the payment can be made immediately. So for that, the budget is required immediately. You need to have money. But for services, it is quite possible that there may be different stages of payment. maybe half yearly payment, maybe quarterly payment, maybe monthly payment, maybe weekly payment. So all the money may not necessarily be required at once by your organization. The budget has been cleared and the money will be given to the party or the vendor or the supplier or the contractor, say monthly. So I will, instead of keeping the 12 months payment together, I'll keep only 1 month payment with me. Now, similarly for works basically the payment is called staggered payment or payment is called stage-wise payment. If you complete the foundation, then I'll make you 10% payment. If it comes to the plinth area or something like that, I'll give you another 15%. If the roof is casted, I will give you another 10%. And something karke, this finally goes for 100% payment. So as the stage is completed in work, the payment is released. Therefore, it is necessary for any planner to classify his entire procurement in terms of materials, services, and works. Because of that only, he'll have to release his payments. It is vitally important from that angle. So what is procurement planning? Naturally, what material, service, or work will be procured in this year? How much to be procured? When to be procured? And what are the likely sources? I mean, from where we should procure all these things? So these are the questions which need to be answered while planning procurement for the entire year. I think it's very clear. If it is clear, then let's move to the next step. If it is not very clear, then my suggestion is you just note it down somewhere. And finally, when we come to the question answer session, you please ask me question. Otherwise, I am not knowing whether you are understanding all these things or not. Okay. So let's go ahead. Next is freezing exact requirements. This is again a very, 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 very important step. Very important step. Requirement means I have seen many a time that in service or works area, the person who wants this service or this work, he himself is not very clear about what he wants. He is clear only about the output or the major part. Why I need a room. I need a room to be constructed. That is the work I want. But a room has got a dimension. How big room you want? What purpose is there for your room? Whether you want that room only to be a computer room, then you have to have only 2 computers over there, then naturally the room should not be very big. But you want to have a room where 10 participants will be sitting and discussing, then you have to have a bigger room. If you want a room where you want to hold a conference, then it will become a conference hall where 50 people will be attending. So you must know for what purpose of use your requirement is there, and accordingly you will freeze the specification, technical specification which we say. This defines the quality, means what do you want? Quality, because when it is completed, does it match with this specification? If it matches with this specification, then you have got a quality kind of thing with you. So technical specification plays the most important role in the whole of the procurement cycle. Most important. And this should be as clear as possible, because many litigations with the supplier in terms of arbitration, going to the court, doing so many all dirty things, they are the product of a poor technical specification. A bad technical specification leads you to nowhere. You lose a lot of time, lot of money, and yet you are not able to get what you wanted to get. Only because in the indent you have not mentioned technical specifications very correctly. So please, for the God's sake, don't underestimate the importance of technical specifications. This is the most important thing. And then comes performance parameters. Performance parameters means you have given a technical specification, no doubt, but what for? Because I want this performance after the things are completed. If I have got an AC in my house And if the AC does not cool the room, then what is the purpose of getting an AC? But then again, cooling or heating is very subjective. So I must say that in the month of April and May, when even in many parts of India witness heat, hot, humid conditions, then I need an AC which can cool down to the extent of say 18 degree or 19 degree temperature, or maybe 20 degree. So this is called performance parameter. Means if the AC is installed and it is not giving me say 20 degree centigrade temperature over there, not cooling, then everything is bekar. It's not required, faltu, useless. Therefore, you have to have a technical specification with performance parameters. I want this because I want the room temperature to come down to 20 degree temperature, 20 degree centigrade. So these performance parameters. And then finally, if you are buying some item, then you need to have a quantity. I want 1 AC, 2 ACs, 3 ACs, 100 ACs, all these things are there. So that is quantity. Now this is not a very exhaustive, but what trying to convey is very, very important, maybe the most important thing to start with. And I have found, let me praise you people. Let me congratulate you auditors. Let me thank you auditors that you people have brought out this, this weakness, this you can say lack of clarity in many of my indents. Your people have come to me personally to look, this is becoming bad only because the case has become bad only because the technical specifications were not clearly frozen. Not that you auditors are technically competent. This is the job done by the engineers. But you have caught at the later stage when the execution was being held for this item or this work or this service, and you found that the things are getting delayed too much because there's a lot of differences in the opinion of the supplier and the purchaser because the technical specifications were not clear for supplier or maybe even for the purchaser at times. This has been brought to my notice many a time by auditors of CAG, commercial auditors. So this is very important for you. Wherever you go and check for purchase files, definitely spare some time on technical specifications. You may not understand it because it's engineering in clear terms. You may not understand. But going through that file and seeing what has happened, you can understand many things and you can come up with some suggestions also. But here for this slide, I must say that this is of vital importance. Never ever ignore technical specifications. This sets the ball rolling, that's all. Let's come to step 3, preparing estimates. So after you have frozen the specifications, then you have to make the estimates. As we discussed, that last purchase price gives a very good reference for making the estimate for this year. With some adjustments in inflation, if the inflation rate has gone up, gone down, or we have got some market intelligence also by how things are moving in the market. We are reading the newspapers, we are going through the internet, we are listening to so many other things. We listen to so many suppliers every day, we meet them and they tell us something about all these things. So based on those things, we can very well come to know the trend in the market. And depending upon the increasing trend or the decreasing trend, we can readjust or adjust our estimates. In some cases, what happens, we are going to buy an item for the first time. The rooms are not made every day or every year. Suppose I have to build a conference hall and this conference hall has not been there. It is going to be the first time and maybe the last time, because once conference room has been built, we may not be needing another conference room for another 25 years. So this is a one-time job. So how the estimate will come? Where is LPP? So there are other methods. Other methods means you have to find out what are the elements that will make the room. In a room of this dimension, how many sacks of cements will be required, sands will be required. So many things are required. So you have got a civil department, you have got a mechanical department, you have got an electrical department. Ask them to prepare the estimates. They will do engineering estimates. So that way the estimates are made. So making estimate is of also vital importance, because this estimate plays a role when you are about to open the price or when you open the price. Once you open the prices of the techno-commercially suitable vendors, then the estimate and L1 price is compared. So for this slide, cost estimate for the desired quantity, surveys to be taken, work to be accomplished, what are the statutory taxes and levies, and accordingly you have to seek the budget as per estimate, and then different approvals you have to take, because you are going to spend that much of money. So somebody is authorized in your organization to approve that, and that is as per the delegation of power, which we have been discussing. So that way preparing estimate is prepared. In fact, there are various ways of preparing estimates, but I don't think this will be wise on our part to discuss it here. Let it be left to the people who make the estimate. Your job is to go and check the estimate and then compare the L1 price and find out the differences, if any. Then you can ask some questions. Next step in procurement is raising purchase requisition. Raising means, here we had seen you, the first step itself as raising of intent. But here we saw that no, timely determination of requirement, then availability of funds, estimate, and then finalization of technical specification and commercial. So this is indent making stage. And here, when you finalize the things, then you have raised the indent. So we are talking about the same thing here. After doing those things, you are raising formally a purchase requisition called indent, or this activity is called as indenting. The indenting activity is there. In most of the organizations where purchasing is a regular activity, the department has already developed a few formats, standard formats, standard documents, which we discussed in the first half. So they have already, there's a pre-printed stationery format which is used for raising the indent. It will have different columns giving you what are the items, how much quantity, what is the estimated rate, what is the total rate, what is the total, then which are the sources from which you want to buy, whether you want to go for open tender or single tender or something like that. All these things are written over there. One has to only fill that. So this is in a format manner, but even if it is not in a format manner, you have to write those details, and that will be constituted to be an indent. Indent raising has been completed. We discussed this point, but again, purchase requisition becomes the starting point for purchasing activity. And as we said, purchasing is the major part of procurement activity. We have already discussed that procurement and purchasing are interchangeably used, these two words, but still procurement is a bigger domain. Purchasing comes under it, within this domain, not under it, within this domain. So here, after what we are discussing is total procurement, but now the purchasing activity starts after the indent has been raised. Rather, the first step for starting the purchasing activity is this purchase requisition or indent. This is the first official document. Now, once the purchase indent is received in the purchase department, then the department decides about what method we will adopt for procurement. These are the commonly used words and commonly understood also. Somebody will say, okay, let's go for direct purchase. That is, we will not invite full-fledged quotation or tender. Let's have a committee of 2-3 persons. go to the market, see what are the rate, and if you see that somebody is really L1, get the material from there. In that case, where the amount is very low, we have seen in the first half about GFR. GFR also provides that up to say 25,000 rupees or so, a committee of 2-3 persons itself can go and straightway purchase an item. So this is called direct purchase. We are not inviting quotation or tender for that, because inviting quotation and tender means there is a procedure for those things. So we are trying to avoid that procedure. We want to get the material at the earliest possible, and the value is also very low. So we go for direct purchase. In most of the organizations, apart from that GFR, the organizations have already come out with their own way of describing this. As I said, in my company, up to 10,000 rupees, I may not go for quotation and tender. Maybe in some other organization, this 10,000 becomes 5,000 or maybe 15 to 20,000 rupees. So depending upon the how the organization goes about it, this value may be different, but direct purchase does exist in every organization because it reduces a lot of time and the value is very low. So this is one of the methods of procurement. Another, and this is the method of procurement used in government departments. That is why we are discussing here. Next is procurement by inviting quotation. Inviting quotation means, say, what is the difference between quotation and tender? I say no difference. No difference, both are same. But still in our professional parlance, the way we speak, the way we understand, usually quotation means rate. You just give me the rate, that's all. So if you are inviting quotation, it means I have a fixed technical and commercial specification on which there is absolutely no compromise. If you fail, if you pass, you pass. If you fail, you fail. Means if you don't accept that, my technical or commercial specification, just go. If you accept, just come in. Therefore, you just give me a rate saying that you accept all my techno-commercial specifications. So give me rate. So we just say whether the party has accepted all the technical or commercial or not. The party has to say yes or no. If they say yes, then we just see their rate. So this is procurement by inviting quotation. And third is procurement by inviting tender or bid. Here there is a little bit of accommodation or flexibility where a tenderer may say that your specification is this. I fully agree with this, but still what I am providing is better than this, or what I am providing is with some changes, it will be good for you. That may or may not be considered. Nowadays, with CBC, CBI, so many things over there, including you good gentlemen and ladies, we try to avoid going for even a bit of deviation. But when we discuss about tender and bid, it means that we are ready to accommodate if it is a better than what we are inviting. But for that, we have to be fair with all the tenderers. We have to give equal opportunity to all the tenderers. It's not only about one or two. So that is called tender. And it is also called, quotation, tender, both are interchangeably used. As I said, professionally, we speak about quotation for some other meaning, tender for some other meaning. So this is the meaning of tender or bid. But tender, bid and offer, quotation, these are almost same things. See here, direct purchase without, anyway, here quotation of tender is these two things. Anyway, so I think methods are clear to you. Direct purchase, procurement by inviting quotation, procurement by inviting tender, bid. In fact, I should not have used the word purchase and procurement. If it is direct purchase, then you say here purchase by inviting quotation, purchase by inviting tender or bid. or say here direct procurement without quotation tender. It will all be same. So what happens when we go for direct purchase? In our organization, purchases up to rupees 10,000 may be made without any tender or quotation. The purchasing authority shall certify that the purchase has been made at reasonable market price in case of purchase from the open market without tender or quotation. We have discussed. Now, what is procurement by inviting quotation? So we have the organization again makes a rule that purchase above rupees 10,000 and up to say 1 lakh shall be made after inviting quotations from at least 3 reliable firms, which shall be opened in presence of willing agents. This can be opened in presence of the representatives of these firms from which the quotations have been received. In such cases of purchase by invitation of quotation, procurement shall be finalized on recommendation of local purchase committee to be constituted in each office. There can be a committee which can do it by inviting 3 quotations. Three quotations, yeah. But the value of that purchase, value means estimate, which we discussed. Estimate should not exceed rupees 1 lakh. And this 10,000 or 1 lakh is not sacrosanct. This varies from organization to organization, as I said. This is how an organization fixes its own delegation of power. So fixes these values. In some organizations, it may be 20,000, it may be 2 lakhs. In some organizations, it may be less than that. This is a case of my company, that is why I'm saying. And in my company also, who knows, things may go change from next year or something like that. So nothing is very constant or sacrosanct here as far as these values are concerned. Now let's come to procurement by inviting open tender. Bid and tender, as I said, have the same meaning, subject to the special rules or order. Anyway, bid and tender is same. Now, open tender is normally resorted to for the supply of articles or stores or for execution of works and services. In public procurement, open tender is not necessarily resorted to every time. The organizations also make some financial delegation as to when we will go for limited tender or open tender or global tender or whatever. But to be very safe, sometimes the purchase people wants to play very safe. They are also human beings. They are also scared of so many agencies hawking upon them. So open tender is the easiest way and safest way to go for that. But tender means normally in public procurement, people think it is open tender, though it is not there. Now, these were the methods of calling of procurement. So let's discuss tendering. Third method of procurement. So tendering, it is a process of inviting offers from vendors who can supply the desired material or give the same work. For some values at 10,000, purchasing can be done without tendering. Now, what is important here for you is single limited open. What is single tender? Single tender invitation is when we are pretty sure that the item that we want is manufactured by only one company, or this is called proprietary. This item is the proprietary of that particular company. In some cases, this item may not be proprietary. There are more than one vendor, but I know that this particular vendor is the best for this item because every time I have seen his delivery time, his price, his quality. Therefore, I will go only for this. But this is not very easy. You just say, I'll go for this, and it will not happen. You have to seek prior approval, and in my organization, this approval has to be sought from no less than the Chief Executive Officer. Every plant like Bokaro or Rourkela or Durgapur or Bhilai, they are headed by a CEO. So even if you want to buy an item worth say 1 lakh rupees on single tender, non-proprietary, then you have to seek the approval of the Chief Executive. So that is a single tender. Limited tender means I will limit my inquiries to some parties which are known for their quality in terms of time, timely supply, in terms of quality of material, and so everything. They are registered with us, and that is why we will use that option. So these are the modes of tendering. Modes. Which mode you are applying? We are applying single, limited, and finally open or global. Then open, as you understand, for open tendering, we have to give that notice in different newspapers, on websites and other things. But we give certain eligibility criteria in that in such a manner that open tendering is limited only to the country, within India. Because today, in the era of website or internet, is there anything which you can limit within a geographical limit? Unless otherwise the internet has been blocked by the government, like it is done in Jammu and Kashmir. So if internet is there, then it is open to everybody in the world. You do something on Facebook and your children are seeing those things in America or Germany. So there is no difference between open and global as such. But still we differentiate between open and global in the sense that some terms and conditions we write in a manner that it becomes specific only to within the country, and some terms and conditions we write very specifically, which means anybody from any part of the world can participate in that tendering. That is called global tendering. Still, I must say, I believe in that because of the internet now, there is nothing like open and global. Everything is global or everything is open, whatever you want to say. This is only to distinguish between single, limited, open and global tendering. These are called the modes of tendering. Modes. Kis mode se ja rahe ho, which mode you are adopting? So we are adopting this, either single, limited, open or global. Now, what tendering you are calling? This is mode and this is bidding process. So do you want to go for single bid? Single bid means in one bid itself, the party will give techno-commercial things as per your requirement and price. All these things are in one page or 2 pages, but in one envelope. One bid mean one envelope. Two bids mean the party will give techno-commercial in one bid, one envelope, say, and price is another envelope. Why? Because first we want only the techno-commercial to be examined, scrutinized. If the party is techno-commercially suitable, say, let's say we have got 5 tenders, out of which 4 are techno-commercially suitable. 1 is not techno-commercially suitable, despite of clarification and other things. So that 1 will be rejected, and therefore that one's price envelope will not be opened. But for the remaining 4, which are techno-commercially suitable, we will open their price bids also. This is called 2-bid system. Two bid bidding, tendering. 3 bids means we are adding one more envelope, and this envelope is of eligibility criteria. This happens usually in big contracts, crores of contracts, worth crores of rupees, crores of dollars, something like that, where we first want the bidder to be eligible to be considered for later stages. For example, we may put this criteria that the bidder must have done similar job at least 2 times in the last 5 years. And the bidder must have a financial capability of at least 50 crores of rupees. So if a bidder gives evidence to that, he will give the first envelope of that. And if we find that what bidder has given is okay, we wanted that only, then the bidder passes the first stage. Then it goes to the second stage, where in 2 bids kind of a situation, we evaluate the techno-commercial bids of that bidder, and if he clears that also, then we finally go for this price bid. So this is called 3 bid. Eligibility criteria first. If he is not meeting the eligibility criteria, his bid is rejected at that stage. His techno-commercial will not be opened, price will not be opened, it will be returned to him. So single, limited, open are the modes, and single or 1 bid, 2 bids or 3 bids are the ways we want to compare the parties. Then mode of tendering, we have discussed, let's not repeat it. Limited tender, open tender, global tender, single tender inquiry, proprietary, single tender inquiry, non-proprietary, we have discussed. Repeat order means we have already placed an order on a party, but because of some urgency, we want the more quantity. So we just repeat the order on the same party on the same rate and terms and conditions. And as we said, bids can be invited as single or one bid, two bids, three bids. Then we have already discussed in the diagram that receipt, opening and evaluation of tenders. Tenders are received and opened on a fixed date and time as mentioned. If the tender, we don't get sufficient tenders on that date, then we do TOD extension, means tender opening date extension. We can extend it by say 10 days, 15 days or 1 month depending upon the situation. Then tender committees are formed which will open the tender and evaluate. Tenders are evaluated technically and commercially. And then techno-commercially suitable tenders are forwarded for price bid opening. We have discussed. Next comes price bid opening and price comparison. Price bids of techno-commercially suitable tenders are opened. Total landed price tender wise are arranged from L1 to highest as L1, L2, L3. Our interest lies in L1, no L2. If required, price negotiation is done only with L1 because as said, after CBC's guidelines, the L2 ceases to exist, L2, L3 ceases to exist. We have to go only for L1, unless otherwise we want to distribute the orders. But if we want to distribute the orders, then also L2 has to match the L1 price. So there is no L2 as such. Purchase contract proposal and order placement. So once L1 is determined, then tender committee will meet and just recommend for order placement. And depending upon the delegation of power for waiting, the order L1 order is placed to L1 or contract is awarded. And this purchase order and contract will be placed to the party which will have details of agreed terms and conditions. I mean, an order or contract, whatever you say, will have complete set of agreed terms and conditions. Nothing missing. Receiving of materials, we have already seen that when we receive the material, we do inspection. And after that, we do acceptance. That is maybe clearance for use. I mean, accepted. After receipt of material, inspection is done to ascertain it matches with order specifications. On clearance, it is forwarded for use. If not cleared on inspection, party is informed for correcting it. If the party is not able to correct it, then correcting means party has to change it. If there is something which party can remake in our premises, then it comes here and does the correcting job. Otherwise, it has to take it back to their works and then correct it and then give back. So that is the importance of inspection. It's very important activity. Finally, on clearance, it is forwarded for use. Means it is given to the user who had raised the intent, who wanted this material. And then finally, if everything is fine, we have taken the material, nothing wrong with that, then payment is made to the supplier as per the contract conditions or purchase order conditions. The conditions are normally like this. For supply, 100% payment will be made after the item is found acceptable. Acceptable means after the item has been inspected and found acceptable. In works, usually works and service, it is a stage-wise payment. 80-20 means 80% of the payment we will give to you whenever you deliver a material, but 20% of that material will be kept with us. That will be given to you after complete erection and commissioning. And there are so many other payment terms also likewise. But the most important things are this, 100% or stage-wise. So these are the steps in procurement. With this, you complete the complete cycle of procurement. We have made the payment here. This is the last stage of the cycle. We come here and then from here, the next cycle starts. So we have gone through the entire cycle. So your procurement procedure used in government departments is like this, is complete now. After that, again, since you are auditors, we'll go there and see what happens. So naturally, some procurement audit checklist I have again prepared, but this is same as we discussed in the first half during public procurement. So it's not right to repeat it. A few points just to refresh your memory. These were the points in that slides also. Whether the procurement plans an APP, it's APP, not AAP. It is APP prepared and displayed, whether the procurements were made as per the procurement plan, whether the method adopted for procurement and all other steps as per the purchase policy were taken, whether the tender selection committee, evaluation committee was constituted and involved in the procurement procedure. These we have all discussed, and therefore now it should be very clear to you. The checklist continues whether the overall procurement was done within a reasonable time, whether there was any avoidable delay at any stage, whether the necessary approval was taken from appropriate authority wherever required, whether proper and adequate documents were maintained, whether the pre-qualification screening for issue of tender documents was done properly and in a fair manner. These are the things which don't need explanation at this stage. You all know that. Whether the technical and financial evaluation was done properly and in fair manner. Whether the contracted firm supplied the goods or executed the work as per the quality, quantity and price indicated in the contract agreement or supply order, often called purchase order. Whether the goods were supplied or works executed in time and properly recorded in measurement books and stock or works register after inspection. We have discussed in the first half, but we're discussing again. We no need to discuss again, but only one. And then finally, whether the payment was made to the supplier, contractor within time frames indicated in the contracts. If not, then reasons for this delay. Whether the earnest money deposits and securities were returned within the time frames indicated in the contracts. If not, reasons for delay. These are only, you can say, some explanatory kind of things given to us. These are not exhaustive. This is not an exhaustive list of what you will do there. What you will do there is known best to you. I leave it to you. But these are some of the questions which keep coming to us from the indentor, from the auditors every year. So that is why I wanted to give you this procurement audit checklist to you. So with this, we come to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much. And now let's discuss. You must be having some questions. So let us go for some questions, one at a time.
Hello, sir. I am DP
Yes.
Lakheda from Dehradun.
Yes, please.
देहरादून उत्तराखंड सर.
बोलिए, नाम आप बता रहे थे?
धन प्रकाश लखेड़ा.
हाँ, धन प्रकाश जी, बोलिए बोलिए.
सर मेरी एक वो थी कि इसमें जो भी पढ़ाया गया है बहुत अच्छा आपका कम्युनिकेशन वो था, क्या बोलते हैं, स्किल था. मेरा एक वो था सर कि आई थिंक या तो इसको जैसे आपने बोला भी है बीच में कि ये सेल के स्टील अथॉरिटी के उस पे रूल्स के ऊपर मतलब ये पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन बनी गई है.
तो नहीं धन प्रकाश जी, एक मिनट मैं आपको इंटरप्ट करना चाहूंगा. नहीं, ये स्टील अथॉरिटी के रूल पे नहीं बनी हुई है. ये स्टैंडर्ड प्रोक्योरमेंट जो प्रोसीजर है, ये स्टैंडर्ड प्रोक्योरमेंट प्रोसीजर पूरे इंडिया में ऐसे ही चलता है, गवर्नमेंट से लेकर सब तक. लेकिन चूंकि मेरे यहाँ भी ऐसे ही चलता है, इसलिए एग्जाम्पल्स मैंने अपनी कंपनी का दिया. चलता हर जगह यही है, मैं जानता हूँ, देखा भी है. हाँ, एनीवे, ठीक है, प्लीज बताइए.
मुझे लगता है सर थोड़ा सा अपडेशन की जरूरत पड़ेगी इसमें, क्योंकि GFR 2017 has come into force from 1st March 2017.
हाँ, बिल्कुल. तो फर्स्ट टाइम हम लोग,
और GFR 2017 के अनुसार जो GFR में डायरेक्ट प्रोक्योरमेंट का वो पावर लिमिट हैज बीन इनहैंस्ड टू अप टू 25,000 इंस्टेड ऑफ 10,000.
हाँ, यस, यू आर राइट, यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट. मैंने GFR के बारे में ना फर्स्ट हाफ में बताया भी था. आप शायद थोड़ा लेट से आए थे, आपने जैसा बताया. तो GFR हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था. तो मैं अभी भी कह रहा हूँ कि इवन मेरी कंपनी का जो मैंने 10,000 रुपए दिया, वो 10,000 अगले साल से हो सकता है कि ये भी 25,000 हो जाए, ये 10 से कम होकर 5 हो जाए. तो ये कंपनी टू कंपनी, गवर्नमेंट की डिफरेंट स्टेट टू स्टेट में ये वेरी करेगा. बट द एसेंशियल प्रोसीजर का पार्ट ये है कि ये वन ऑफ द एसेंशियल्स ऑफ द प्रोसीजर है कि आप डायरेक्ट परचेस कर सकते हैं. दैट इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट कि एक डायरेक्ट परचेस का अथॉरिटी आपको है. वैल्यू आप डिसाइड कीजिए, वैल्यू आपकी कंपनी टू कंपनी डिसाइड करेगी, स्टेट टू स्टेट डिसाइड करेगा. तो कोई बात नहीं है।
Sir, one another issue is single source procurement थोड़ा एलोबरेटिव अगर हो जाता, सिंगल सोर्स प्रोक्योरमेंट GFR 166 में कहता है कि सिंगल सोर्स प्रोक्योरमेंट के 3 जो वो हैं आइटम्स हैं, जिसमें फर्स्ट आइटम है कि सिंगल सोर्स आप कब कर सकते हैं, या तो आप कोई इक्विपमेंट से या उसके जो है पार्ट्स वगैरह के लिए कंपेटेबिलिटी के वो हो, या कोई इक्विपमेंट पेटेंटेड हो, या जो है इमरजेंसी हो, 3 आइटम के लिए गया है। तो थोड़ा सा सिंगल सोर्स प्रोक्योरमेंट को हाउ टू डू और हाउ टू ऑडिट द सिंगल सोर्स प्रोक्योरमेंट, व्हाट आर द चेकलिस्ट ऑफ सच प्रोक्योरमेंट इफ हैपेंड इन ऑडिटी यूनिट्स, व्हाट शुड वी चेक हियर?
यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट, इसको थोड़ा एलैबोरेट किया जा सकता है। सी बेसिकली लेट मी टेल यू कि सिंगल जो परचेजिंग है, सिंगल टेंडर, ये पहले मैंने कहा कि 2 तरह का है। पहला तरीका है कि सिंगल टेंडर जो होता है उसको कहता हूं प्रोप्राइटरी या नॉन प्रोप्राइटरी। नाउ प्रोप्राइटरी आइटम वो है कि जिसमें एक ही सप्लायर है, जैसा आपने कहा कि वो मैचिंग पार्ट्स है, तो मैचिंग पार्ट जो है वो एक ही सप्लायर, हम लोग उसको कहते हैं कि सेम सप्लायर है, उसी का है। जैसे हमारे यहाँ या कई जगह आप देखिएगा प्लांट्स में, बड़ी बड़ी फैक्ट्रीज में, कि जिसने इक्विपमेंट सप्लाई किया था जिस पार्टी ने, उसके स्पेयर्स ना यूनिक होते हैं, वो दूसरे के स्पेयर्स वहां फिट नहीं होते हैं। और ये पार्टीज का ना अपनी बिजनेस बढ़ाने का तरीका भी होता है कि वो उसको स्टैंडर्डाइज नहीं करते हैं ताकि दूसरे ना सप्लाई कर डालें। लेकिन हमारी मजबूरी एज ए परचेजर ये है कि हमें तो अपना प्लांट चलाना है, तो जब चलाना है और उसका ही पार्ट मैच करेगा तो हमें सिंगल टेंडर में जाना होगा, और उसको हम कहेंगे सिंगल टेंडर प्रोप्राइटरी। तो सिंगल टेंडर प्रोप्राइटरी से हमारा फायदा क्या हो जाता है कि हमें फिर किसी का भी अप्रूवल नहीं लेना होता है। हमें कहे कि जब वो उसी का पार्ट मैच करेगा तो हम किसी का अप्रूवल लेना न लेने से क्या फायदा, कोई तो उसमें कोई बात नहीं है, वो तो उसी से लेना है। तो एक हुआ सिंगल टेंडर प्रोप्राइटरी। नाउ इसका एक्सप्लेनेशन जो आप कह रहे हैं कि वो मैचिंग पार्ट्स होना चाहिए, वो ऐसा होना चाहिए, तो वो इसीलिए होता है। Second is very important, and second is very serious from the point of view of audit, of CBI, of CBC, कि जहाँ वो मैचिंग पार्ट नहीं है और भी सप्लायर्स उसके हैं, मगर उसके बावजूद मैं एक ही पर जा रहा हूँ, तो उस वक्त मेरे को बड़े लंबे चौड़े एक्सप्लेनेशन देने होंगे कि मैं उसी पर क्यों जा रहा हूँ। आई हैव टू रियली जस्टिफाई कि व्हाई आई एम गोइंग टू दैट सप्लायर ओनली। अब जैसे मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि एक केस, ऐसा केसेस आते हैं, एक केस मैंने डील किया कि जिसमें एक मेजर इक्विपमेंट जो है इट वाज सप्लाइड बाय सम पार्टी एक्स, दूसरी टेंडरिंग हुई उसी इक्विपमेंट के लिए 10 साल के बाद, तो 10 साल के बाद भी ना किस बंदे ने कहा कि मेरे को उसी से चाहिए, जबकि उसको सप्लाई करने वाले 4-5 थे। तो अब मैंने ये क्वेश्चन पूछा कि भाई इसको तो सप्लायर और भी जाते हैं, तुमको उसी से क्यों चाहिए? तो उसने जवाब क्या दिया वो सुनिए। उसने कहा सुनो, उसके जो स्पेयर पार्ट्स हैं उनकी इन्वेंट्री मेरे को जो है वो बहुत ह्यूज हो जाती है, उस इन्वेंट्री को कंट्रोल करने के लिए मैं उसी से लेना चाहूंगा, दूसरे से लेने से मेरी इन्वेंट्री बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ जाएगी और मेरे काफी मनी उसमें ब्लॉक हो जाएगा, तो मैं दूसरे से नहीं लूंगा। हालांकि दिस वाज ओवर रूल्ड, वी डिड नॉट एक्सेप्ट एंड वी वेंट फॉर ओपन टेंडर, वी गॉट सम अदर पार्टी आल्सो, और दूसरी पार्टी ने बड़ा अच्छा काम किया, लगवा दिया। लेकिन अगर उस बंदे के आर्गुमेंट्स में बहुत दम है कि वो सिंगल टेंडर में ही जाएगा डिस्पाइट ऑफ द फैक्ट कि उसके अदर सप्लायर्स हैं, तो उसको भी हम लोग एक्सेप्ट करते हैं। ऑफ कोर्स उसको, जैसे मैंने कहा कि इवन ही हैज टू टेक द अप्रूवल डेलीगेशन ऑफ पावर के हिसाब से फ्रॉम माय सीईओ, चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑफिसर, जो प्लांट का हेड होता है, उससे लेनी पड़ेगी उसको परमिशन। सो दीज आर द सर्कमस्टांसेस ड्यूरिंग विच और इन विच वी गो फॉर सिंगल टेंडर, we accept single tender.
Sir, how to distinguish between product propriety and technology propriety? Actually, product propriety मैंने जो है टीवी लेना है, एलईडी लेना है, तो वो कहेगा साहब वो प्रोप्राइटरी सर्टिफिकेट, he can also issue the proprietary certificate on the basis of the specification made on the TV brand Samsung, such as Samsung. जो कहता है कि मेरे पास 3 USB लग सकते हैं और HDMI पोर्ट भी है एंड व्हाटएवर जो भी है, 2 HDMI पोर्ट है, दैट इज प्रोडक्ट स्पेसिफिक, प्रोडक्ट प्रोप्राइटी, दैट इज प्रोडक्ट प्रोप्राइटी। लेकिन टेक्नोलॉजी प्रोप्राइटी में सर मतलब कैसे हम इन दोनों को वो करेंगे कि टेक्नोलॉजी प्रोप्राइटी ये नहीं है, मतलब ये प्रोडक्ट बनता ही नहीं है इसके अलावा किसी के द्वारा और के द्वारा। Can we call them from patent certificate from them who is claiming for technology propriety?
Yes, you can call for the patent certificate, no doubt. But एक चीज है कि ऐसे न केसेस में हम परचेज वालों को बड़ा लड़ना भी पड़ता है, काफी लड़ना पड़ता है आपके बिहाफ में, ऑडिटर्स के बिहाफ में। माने आपका काम हम पहले ही कर दिए होते हैं आपके आने के पहले। वो क्या है कि लेट्स से somebody is going to buy television, TV. अब TV as an item cannot be proprietary because TV is manufactured by hundreds of companies.
Yes.
लेकिन आप ये पूछिए अपने बंदे से कि भैया तुम ऐसा ही क्यों लेना चाह रहे हो स्पेसिफिकेशन जो सिर्फ एक पार्टी का है। मैं मानता हूं कि कोई एक पार्टी है जिसका HMI पोर्ट इतना है, जिसका LED का इस तरह का है, किसी और का नहीं है, तुम वही क्यों लेना चाह रहे हो? दिस क्वेश्चन आई कैन आस्क। परचेजर हैज ए राइट to challenge the specification, but purchaser does not have the right to change the specification. मैं चेंज नहीं कर सकता हूं, मैं चैलेंज कर सकता हूं। तो मैं चैलेंज करूंगा कि टीवी ऐसी चीज नहीं है जो प्रोप्राइटरी है। तुम क्यों जबरदस्त बोलिए।
समटाइम ऐसा देखा गया है सर, और खास तौर पे मेडिकल डिपार्टमेंट के ऑडिट में कि जो वेंडर्स होते हैं, वेंडर्स अपना वो जो इंडेंटर होते हैं, इंडेंटर कहते हैं कि मुझे इसी कंपनी का ये टीवी चाहिए, जो LED स्क्रीन चाहिए, जिससे कि मैं इसको देख सकूं कि मुझे जो पेशेंट को ट्रीट करना है उसमें वो क्लियरिटी चाहिए जो हम ऑर्डिनरी और टीवी में नहीं देख सकते। यू फाइनेंस पीपल या और जो भी फाइनेंस पीपल हैं वो तो L1 पे जाते हैं, या क्वालिटी बेस्ड जो टेंडरिंग होती है उस पे जाते हैं जिसमें नंबरिंग होती है। तो सर मतलब ऑडिट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से इसको कैसे वो किया जाए, चैलेंज किया जाए कि ये चीज जो है, किसी डॉक्टर का क्या होता है कि जब वो माइक्रोस्कोप होता है, माइक्रोस्कोप से जैसे इंडोस्कोपी होती है, इंडोस्कोपी के लिए जिस पे वो दिखता है टीवी पे, कैमरा रहता है इंडोस्कोपी पे आगे, वो कहता है कि वही मुझे वाला टीवी चाहिए। रीजन बिहाइंड कि उस पे हमें एक एक जो है पोल्स दिख जाएंगे जो पेशेंट के अंदर होंगे, तो मुझे तो वही टीवी चाहिए। तो हम उसको, और उसने खरीद लिया डिपार्टमेंट ने, तो हमारे पास चैलेंज क्या रहता है सर ऑडिट के पास?
देखिए टेक्निकली तो आप उसको चैलेंज नहीं कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज ऑडिटर्स तो टेक्निकली उतना क्वालिफाइड नहीं हो पाते हैं, वो तो बिल्कुल इंजीनियरिंग में भी बड़ा हाई एंड इंजीनियरिंग की बात होती है। लेकिन तब क्या होता है कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस ने सिस्टम बना रखे हैं कि अगर ऐसे केस में कंपिटेंट अथॉरिटी जो है वो अप्रूव कर देता है कि ठीक है तुम उसी से लो, तो मेरे ख्याल से ऑडिट वहां पे चुप रह जाएगा। ऑडिट को वहां पर ये देखना होगा तुमने ये चीज जो मांगी थी तो तुम्हारे कंप्यूटर अथॉरिटी जो है वो सहमत हुए थे कि नहीं। इफ यू हैड एग्रीड बाय योर रिक्वायरमेंट देन आई हैव नो क्वेश्चन टू आस्क।
ओके सर,
तो वो एक तरीका है। एनी अदर क्वेश्चन प्लीज?
थैंक यू
वेरी मच मिस्टर। कोई किसी दूसरे का क्वेश्चन? Any other question, please? Or do I take it as if whatever I discuss has been clearly understood by you or not at all understood by you? No questions?
No questions, sir.
No question.
Q, why? Why no questions? Have you understood clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Or you have not understood anything?
No, sir. Yes.
You are crystal clear, sir.
Ajay?
You are very crystal clear.
Please come again. I am not able to hear you.
You are very crystal clear in all the points we have discussed.
Thank you very much. But still, you must have some questions because this is one topic which generates a lot many questions when I take classes. Not many questions because it is here where the auditors play a very dominant role every year. आप ऑडिट करने
Most
जा
of
रहे
the
हो ना
most
किसी, हाँ?
most of the questions which we are about to ask were answered by you itself, sir, even before our asking.
No, this particular presentation I have made after only taking your classes. See, today one gentleman has told me na कि single tender में some more details should have been there. So next time when I come here to take the classes, I will put those details also in that slides. It will be more clear to you, clearer to you. Okay. Anyway, you are free to ask any questions. I'm here. If no question is there, then let us call it a day.
Thank
Tomorrow
you, sir. Thank you very much.
again at 2:30, there is another class on contract management at 2:30. So many concepts that we discussed in the first half today and right now in the second half, those concepts will remain the same, but in the contract, some terminology changes. So we will explain and discuss those terminologies tomorrow. But the concept of procurement, the procedure of procurement, the procedure of contracting will remains more or less the same. Okay. So I'll wait for another 2-3 minutes if you have any question.
Sir, I have a query on regarding this is the works, contract like the PWD and all, they are executing the works. So when they prepare the estimate, they adopt there is something called the daily schedule of rate or the schedule of rate.
Yes.
So how is it prepared now? What is the basis of preparation of the SOR? Any idea? Can you just throw some light on that? Because we see many times they prepare the estimate based on a particular SOR, and when they invite the tenders, the tendered cost goes much below. Say for example 50%, 60% and all. So what I understand is the SOR is prepared based on the market rate. So normally there should not be much variation. So what is the basis of preparation of that SOR?
No, I will suggest you first check when the daily schedule rates were made, because in many cases which I have seen, the rates were made 10 years ago. There was no revision at least during the last 5 years. They are supposed to revise their rates or estimates every year, but it normally does not happen. They take time, 5 years or 10 years at times I have seen. Nowadays I do not know because that I saw some 5 years ago. Now what happens? The rates are 5 years ago and the rates have been finalized sitting at Delhi. Okay. They get the rates from all part of the country, I do not know, but they finalize it at Delhi. But in my place, wherever I am executing the work, I see that the market rates are different. You are very correct in saying that sometimes the rate go very high, sometimes the rate go very low. Yeah. Because today, whatever the situation prevails in the market, the rates are a product of that only. Yeah. If the transportation cost has gone very high because the diesel and petrol are selling at around 100 rupees per liter, then naturally today every item that you get which includes which has some transportation in this, they will go high. So daily rates which were made 5 years ago, they just don't make any sense here. But going by the government procedure, daily rates are the only reference point for us. So the best way of going about is that you have daily rates in your one hand, but you have the market rate, current market rate on your hand. And then you yourself decide if the market rate has gone high and there is enough justification given by the purchaser for that, then I think you should accept. There's no other way out. We have accepted that way only. I have placed the orders where daily rates, where market rates were 50% higher than the daily rates. 1.5 guna, 50% you can imagine. And yet we went ahead with awarding of the contract only because we knew that these were the right rates in the market. The suppliers will not accept daily rates. They are not bothered about daily rates, daily schedule rates.
My question is, if the daily schedule of rate is prepared 5 years back, now when you are inviting the tender, it should be above the estimate. The estimate. No, now here it is below the estimate. That means the rate is 5 years old. Naturally you should get a higher rate. Now when you are inviting the tender, now here it is happening the other way around. So
I got your point. But as the competition grows, the rate comes down. And we do not know what happens when a party quotes very high rate and why that party quotes very low rate at times. See, now is the concept of reverse auction. I have seen parties coming down by 50%, 60% during reverse auction. When I ask the party, why did you do so? So the party says that they just wanted to grab this order. Because if they don't have this order, they cannot enter into the market. Sometimes the party said that, look, we are not having any order right now, but we are having the overhead expenditure. We are paying to our employees. So from where that rolling money will come? So at least we have got some money over here and we are not running into losses. We'll just make it up. Or we will run in some loss here, but we have another contract going on, say in Delhi or in Karnataka and some places from where we are getting good profit. So it will adjust. So the way parties quote, you cannot make out that this is the true daily scheduled rate or true market rate. It depends upon the party also. There may be some party whose overhead is very high and some other party is making the same item, but their overhead is very low. They are more competitive in the market than the first party. So it is very, very difficult to say anything about that. But while preparing the estimates, you have to go by some estimate, some reference. So reference is start by daily schedule rates. So that is why you see sometimes the rate is very high, sometimes the rate are very low. It happens. There is no explanation for that. It happens. But you just check whether the that indenter, that requisitioner of that work has made the estimate as per the daily schedule rate or not. That you check.
Yeah, that we check.
That you check. Very difficult to give any explanation. It depends from party to party. Reverse auction, though I have seen what parties are quoting. And surprisingly, when the order is awarded to that party, which has quoted 50% below the estimate, that party executed the job so well. You know what happened next year? In the next cycle, it became the last purchase price, so it became the estimate.
Yeah.
And what happened next year when we went to reverse auction? No party quoted below that, not even that party. That particular party raised its L1 its price by around 25-30%. Though it became L1 next time also, but then the party had quoted 25-30% higher. No explanation given at time, no explanation given this time. But since we have been benefited by 50% reduction in the estimated price, so we are happy. Okay. No. It does happen. Any other question, please? So shall I call it a day? No questions are coming. So let us call it a day. It's all over. Okay. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Tomorrow again I'll be appearing before you.